unstuck. Somehow we got unstuck. What's up, YouTube? I know it's been a while since our last update, so I wanted to give everybody an idea of what's been going on our end. Unfortunately, we've had a couple of issues within the family and our health. I had a couple of different stomach ailments, which ultimately led me going to the ER just because the pain was so bad. Ended up getting an endoscopy, and it looks like it was most likely just some gastritis, so I've been taking some medication for that and feeling a lot better. Unfortunately, on the other side, what's been a lot worse is that my wife ended up falling down the stairs the day after I went to the ER and broke her foot. Thankfully, we had some family come by and help us with everything, so things have been a lot better. California card rooms did recently close down for about a month, so I haven't been able to play any live poker. It does look like Lucky Chances has once again opened up, so I might do that. Kind of have to decide what's best for the safety of my family as far as whether I should wait to get the vaccine before I go play again. We do still have a number of old episodes to get to from when I was previously playing, so don't worry, there'll be tons of hand histories. Also wanted to update you, we've got a bunch of new merch on the pokerrags.us website. Here we have the embroidered hoodie, we've got an embroidered book bag, a couple of different cool things, so please check out the website. And let's get to those hand histories. We are on week 2. Let's jump right into the hand histories. Today's day 1. It is Monday. I got into the casino fairly early. I think that I actually got a seat in the first game. Shortly thereafter, the second game started, which didn't look that great. So obviously decided to stick in my game. And there is a limp in late position. I looked down at A6 of diamonds in the small blind. This guy that limped had just not too long ago opened to 30, where he ended up doubling up a pocket queen. So I think when he limps here, he's just gonna have a weak range. It's not gonna be a very strong hand, right? Like if he's raising to 30 with his good hands, when he's limping, it's not gonna be that great. So I decided to make it 25. In hindsight, I think I should be making a little bit larger, probably 30, 35 to decentivize the big blind from calling. He's unlikely to call anyway. I think obviously he's gonna have any 2 cards, but also we want to de-incentivize the limper from calling as well. Like if he wants to call, that's fine, but I think we don't want to necessarily have to play A6 suited out of position. Anyway, so I make it 25. The big blind calls as well as the limper. We go 3-8 to a flop, which comes queen 8-5 with 1 diamond. So I flop, a couple of back doors there. The backdoor diamonds, backdoor straight draw. I decide to c-bet 55. On the larger side, again, trying to elicit some folds. I think that the only real hands that are going to be calling me here are a hand that contains a queen. It's hard to make top pair. Now the big blind calls, and the player who limped folds. I think when he calls here, he's probably got a fairly strong range. It's going to be a hand that's going to look like a queen, or maybe some pocket pairs like jacks or 10s that, want to see what happens on the turn. The turn is a 10, now bringing in some of the gut shots, the jack 10, the jack 9, as well as just being kind of a bad card for my range, right? Like, unless I exactly have a hand like king, queen, ace, queen, I'm probably just not going to be double barreling this exact card very often. So I decided to check, and he snap checks it back. Well, when he snap checks it back, my initial read was that he's not that strong, but I think what this is going to be indicative of almost always is a top pair, middling strength type of hand that wants to get to showdown. I think if he had some hand like pocket jacks, pocket 9, something like that, those hands are just way more often going to tank for a bit and then check because they're going to try to make it look like they're relatively strong and hope that you don't bet the river so they don't have to make a tough call. So I think when he snap checks it back, it's actually very specifically going to be a queen here. The river's a brick. Nothing really gets there. Obviously, I don't expect to win this hand by checking. And I decided to bet 105, and he snap calls me with queen 7 of clubs. I recognized this kid, but I didn't know exactly who he was until I ended up a little bit later. It's recognizing who he was, looking at him a little bit more, and then realized he's kind of a hero, likes to play a lot of hands goofy. So I just really hate the way I played this hand. Never mind the fact that he's the guy that I'm trying to bluff, but just more importantly, the way the hand played. I think when he calls his flop and snap checks back to turn, it's a hand that wants to get to showdown, which is going to be a queen, which I don't expect to get a fold. If I do want to try to get a queen to fold, I should be betting 2 times the pot on the river, not some standard sizing that a queen wants to call. Obviously, it's nice to see that this guy wants to play a 50 big blind pot with queen 7 suited. But obviously I'm the one that played it bad because I kind of knew that he had a hand that wants to get a showdown, and I still try to bluff him off of it. I think, even if I'm trying to get a hand like pocket jacks or pocket 9s fold, I'm not sure a hand like that folds because of the line that I took. The bet check bet line just always looks kind of fishy. If you're trying to get a fold from somebody on a hand, you should just go bet, and then maybe on the river folding, checking rather, because that's a lot of times a spot where people just don't want to fold, especially once you check the turn. Once you check the turn, they just don't think you have that great of a hand, and now they're much more likely to pay off. So if you're looking to get some value out of your overpairs and other hands, the bet check bet line gets looked up a lot more than the old bet line. The next interesting hand to note, there is a limp from anything on +1. Now the next player makes it 15. There's a bunch of calls. I'm on the button with 10-9 off. You know, I like to get the flops in position. I call it 15, and we go 5 ways to a flop, which comes Jack, Jack, 8. Checks around to me. Obviously, I can just check back here and try to realize, but my read is nobody has anything, and obviously having a draw here, we have outs, and we'll be able to kind of figure out and navigate post flop and see what occurs. So I decided to bet 55. And now folds to the year opener for 15. He calls, everybody else folds. We go heads up to a turn, which is the 5 of hearts, bringing in a flush draw. He checks, and he's about 200. The stack depth dictates such that I can't really bet like a reasonable amount and then now try to get him to fold the river. For example, like if I think he has a hand like pocket 9s, pocket 10s, you know, queens plus, if I bet like 100 here, he's going to have like 100 left, and I don't expect those hands to fold on the river. Obviously, I can bet that, try to apply some pressure, and then just check back on the river if I don't get there. But I decide, obviously my choice here is to check back and try to realize against some hands that, you know, don't want to fold, or try to apply maximum pressure. We have outs, obviously. I expect the queen or the 7 to be outs, unless he exactly has like pocket queens, which would be a disaster for us. Anyway, after some thought, I decide to rip it, and he goes in the tank. One of the other reasons that I decided to rip it was I couldn't see what his stack was, and I asked him, you know, how much does he have? And at that exact moment, he like shoves in his like 200 to the line, like this is how much I have, trying to feign strength. And my immediate read is that he's not particularly strong. So I decided to rip it. He goes in the tank forever, goes to act like he's mucking, thinks some more, and finally calls. Womp womp, we're gonna have to try to get there. The river's a deuce. I tell him I missed, and he proudly slams over his ace-king high. No pair, no draw, ace high. Kudos to him for making a good call, obviously. I think that when I jam this turn, you know, would I take this on with a jack? Probably not. I'd probably bet something like half pot to try to commit him. I don't know if he knows this. You made a good call, obviously. Like, it looks like I'm going to have some draws here. Would I play some other hands in this way? Probably not. Like if I had an 8, I would probably just check back, try to realize. Like if I have 9s or 10s and think I have the best hand, I'd probably check back. Like I'm not going to try to apply max pressure to a hand that I think might be an overpair. So I think he, you know, makes a good read. Unfortunately, like I said, the stack depth kind of dictated that I couldn't really bet like a normal sizing, because I think a normal sizing would put me in a bad spot in the river. Yeah, maybe if I bet 100, he just folds his ace king. I don't know if he calls twice there. Maybe that's a better bet. Maybe betting like 100, leaving him with 120, and then just giving up on the river is a better plan. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe you know, I don't necessarily think that this guy's watching my YouTube videos, but I do think that, you know, there is talk at the casino about who I am. Obviously, there are a decent amount of regulars who all play there. I think that people do think that I am a particularly aggressive opponent, and so they kind of, you know, allowed him to make this in my opinion, fairly tough call. I mean, maybe it's kind of standard here. There are draws. Maybe I don't necessarily play a jack in this way, and he's able to, you know, figure that out. But yeah. Another semi-bluff gone bad. Obviously, we had equity. We did not get there. You know, in both spots, obviously, we have equity. We're, you know, not much equity, but some equity. Anyway, and now we are stuck like, what, 500? Something like 500. Yeah, not going the right way. Now, in the next hand, I open Queen Jack suited to $20. I've been, I think, fairly active up until this point. Maybe I've opened like 3 other hands. I don't remember exactly what they were, but I think they ended up just getting folds, or maybe I got a call and c-bet the flop. Anyway, so I opened a 20. There are a couple folds, and now a guy who I think is capable of, you know, doing some shenanigans decides to make it 65. Folds back to me. Obviously, I will not be folding the Queen Jack suited. 45 more. I call. We go heads up to a flop, which comes Queen Jack 10 all diamonds. So we do flop top 2. But it is a draw heavy board, and it is a board that is going to still smack a pre-flop 3-betters range, right? You can have ace king, you can have pocket kings for open-ended, pocket kings with a diamond. So it's still a spot where I'm going to have to tread kind of lightly. I check, and he checks it back. When he checks it back, I don't think he's particularly strong here. I think that, you know, obviously if he has a hand like aces or kings with a diamond, ace king, he's just going to be c-betting those hands. I think it's just much more likely that he doesn't really have anything here. Anyway, the turn is now an offsuit king. Obviously a pretty bad card because, you know, light 3-betting does often contain an ace in the hand, which would now beat me with an ace high straight. So I check again, kind of thinking that I might just have to fold this spot. And now he bets 105. There's something that he does that just doesn't make me believe him. It's something that I think is a fairly reliable tell. It is a tell that I can't really detail too much, because if I did kind of detail it, anybody that played with me regularly would probably be able to abuse me by using this fairly frequently, fairly often. And I wouldn't really know, who watches these videos, who doesn't, and how often I'd be getting owned by somebody just doing this to me relentlessly. So anyway, I just don't really believe him. Like I said, I thought he was 3-betting me wide. I don't believe that that he has an ace here. So I call. The river's a brick. I check and he checks back and we win. Obviously, when I win with Queen Jack on a King Queen Jack 10 3-diamond board, where he didn't take any aggressive, where he 3-bet me pre-flop. He's obviously 3-betting fairly wide. He doesn't have a 9 in his hand, so it's not pocket nines. He doesn't have an ace in his hand, so it's not ace-x suited. It's not any aces. It's not any like king queen suited. So it looks like it's either suited connectors or some pocket pairs 8 and under, which, yeah, maybe those could be 3-betting against somebody that thinks they're opening way too wide. But yeah, I think it's just much more likely that he's gonna have a hand like, yeah, some suited connectors or something, or just some hand that he wants to get real crazy with against the guy that he thinks is tilting. So score 1 for the good guys. It now folds to me in my small blind. I look down and I have pocket aces. Boo! Because I generally chop the rake in these games. Just makes it so that most people want to chop and I chop. That's fine. But then I suddenly remember the guy on my left is a guy who immediately and adamantly told me repeatedly that he does not chop. As soon as he sat down, he told the guy to his left, and then he gets my attention, lets me know that he doesn't chop. So yeah, great. I opened, and actually there's been a hand previously already where I just folded to him from my small blind to his big blind. So I opened to 20. He calls. We go heads up to a flop, which comes 9-9-7 with 2 hearts. Obviously, this is a spot I would just be c-betting all the time, so I decided to bet 30, and he calls fairly quickly. The turn is now an offsuit 5. Obviously, 8-6 gets there, but how many times is he going to have 8-6 here? I do lose to a 9. But that said, it looks like I've been tilting. I think I'm going to get called fairly light here, so we need to keep betting for value. Obviously, there are some flush draws, so we can get called by worse as well. I decided to size up to 100, which is about a pot-sized bet. A bit of this is probably tilt and trying to make it look like I'm tilting, trying to get heroed pretty light. Obviously, if he has draws also, he's only calling this street. He's not calling on the river if he misses. So I decided to try to extract maximum value on this street. I bet 100. He thinks for a bit and calls. At this point, obviously, I'm a little bit scared, but I do have pocket aces, and we can't just see monsters under the bed all the time, especially in this heads-up spot where it's blind versus blind. The river is a 10. Your pocket 10s get there. Otherwise, the straight draws that were on the flop had already gotten there, unless he has Jack 8 of hearts. And now I decided I'm going to be bet folding. I'm going to be betting for value. Like I said, I expect that I'm going to be getting called much lighter. I've been looking like I'm monkeying around. I'm stuck. So we need to be going for value. I bet 170, like I said, looking to bet fold. This guy, I'd only seen him just play super solid. Every time he raised, he got called and he had it. Was making good folds. So I just, I think if he raises a spot, it's an easy fold. Anyway, he snaps me with the 1 chip. I turn it over, and he rolls over the 8-6 of diamonds for turning the straight. Yeah, that one's frustrating for a number of reasons. Obviously, generally speaking, I'm chopping this spot. It ends up being a spot where, because the guy doesn't chop, I'm happy about it, and instead I get punished for being happy about not getting to chop this one time when I have aces in the small blind. Yeah, variance once again. Pretty frustrating, because if somebody else at the table, I think everybody else at the table was chopping, so anybody else at the table we end up chopping. Instead I get this good spot, but he sucks out on us on the turn. Pretty unfortunate. In this next hand, there is an open to 20 from the kid with the Queen 7 of clubs. He's been losing a few pots since he's returned to the table. Feels like he's, just opening a lot. I look down at ace queen offsuit. I 3-bet to 75. And now folds to I think he's a small blind or the big blind, who's been playing fairly solid. He now has maybe 800 or something like that. He cold calls a 75, and the kid calls as well. Obviously, when he cold calls a 75, I think he's weighted to some pocket pairs, like 9s through queens maybe even, and ace king. So we go 3 ways to a flop. It comes 9-6-3 with 2 hearts. Goes check. Obviously, I'm going to have the range advantage here. This is a fairly raggedy board. Even though I think it's possible that the flatter of the 3-bet has some overpairs, I think I can double barrel here, maybe even triple off. I do have the ace of hearts in my hand. I'm at 140, and now the player in the blinds calls. The original opener folds. We go heads up to a turn, which comes, I believe, the 5 of hearts. So obviously completes the flush. complete some straight draws, although I don't think it's very likely that he himself is calling me with like 7-8 suited or anything like that for 75. Is it possible that he flopped a set? Sure, though I think that like on this like 2-heart board, those are likely to just try to raise, get it in. So when he checks me on the turn and I look back just to make sure that I have the ace of hearts, this is a spot that lately I've been pot controlling a lot, where I, check back to try to realize my equity. I'm stuck. Maybe that's a part of my decision to not do this time. But I decide, again, like my intention was to double barrel off here, maybe even triple off. This is obviously a great card for me. So I decided to go for it. I bet 300. He thinks for a bit and calls. When he calls here, I think his most likely hands are going to be the overpairs with a heart. So maybe 10s or jacks with a heart. I don't have the queen of hearts, so it's still possible that he has pocket queens with the queen of hearts. Maybe even kings. Though again, I think most people are just going to be like 4-betting kings. It's like standard. People just 4-bet getting kings all day. My plan here originally was to triple off, but now that he's called and I only have like 500 left, I think I actually might just check back a river, especially if it's going to be like some board pairing card, some small card. I think I might just get heroed here by 10s, jacks, queens. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to get it through. To my surprise, the river ends up coming an ace and we get there. He checks once again. And now the question is, should we be going for value? Like I said, I thought his most likely hands here were going to be 10s through queens. I think that if I triple off here, I should have an ace, aces, kings, fairly often. If not ace X, with the ace of hearts. I think it's pretty hard to think of like bluffs that I would play in this way that triple off that are, not going to be beating like 10s, jacks, or queens. So I think betting here is fairly thin. Again, like, that's something that we have to leave our opponents to, right? Like if I bet small enough, maybe I'm going to get heroed by 10s, jacks, and queens. Is it possible that he's a set? Unlikely, but I think it is still possible. I decide that I think this is just too thin a spot to be value betting. I expect like his pocket pairs to just fold on this river if I bet. I check it back, and we end up beating his pocket queens with the queen of hearts. So he had exactly what I thought. Is it possible that if I bet like 200 he calls? Yeah, maybe it is. I don't know. I think it's close. I think that if I bet the spot, is it possible that sometimes I value on myself? Yeah. I wasn't really 100% sure where I was at in this hand. I thought it was likely that he had the overpairs, but I wasn't really sure. So I decided to go with the check back. Maybe if I bet 200, I do get looked up by the pocket queens. So yeah, kind of having a couple of missteps here on the river in these value bet spots that I think are like kind of thin, but as played in position, when people check to you, I think as played, like if he had a hand that beat mine, he would likely have put a raise in or done something else differently in a different street. And that's kind of what separates the great players from the good players, is finding these spots to try to get thin value. Like even if I'm not going to get called very often, that's fine. Like if I'm sure I have the best hand, I should be trying to put in a bet in. And I was, fairly sure that I had the best hand. After that hand, I think I'm stuck maybe 200. I pick up a bunch of other small pots thereafter. I've got to leave within like 20 minutes. I'm thinking about racking up. Then I get stuck 100 again, play the final 20 minutes. And somehow we end up booking a $30 win. Just play a couple small hands where I raise and take it. Feels good, obviously, to book a $30 win after being stuck. I think I stuck 1,000 at one point. So I was in for 2K, and we ended up cashing out for $2,030 for a $30 win. A lot of variance in the session. I think I made a lot of mistakes. A lot of spots I should be value betting that I didn't. Some spots where I raised where I shouldn't have. So this was a session I'd probably give myself like a C+ on. Did not play my best. Got unlucky in some spots. Didn't get lucky in some spots. Got lucky in some spots. Kind of your standard poker session. Anyway, we are here on a Tuesday, in for day 2 of the week. Good luck to us. Catch you in the next video.